The silent pulse had grown stronger. Orion 3, once calm and orderly, now felt tension in the air. Crew members walked with hesitant steps. Conversations started and stopped mid-sentence. People who had always laughed freely now stared at each other in confusion, forgetting why they used to smile. The station seemed haunted not by a monster, but by its own fading memories. Ryan Hale stood in the observation deck beside Alara, both staring at the vast galaxy outside. The stars glittered, beautiful and eternal, yet even their light seemed fragile in the face of the invisible threat moving toward them. Alara's hands rested lightly on the table in front of them. She spoke softly, but her voice carried a sense of urgency. "We have slowed it, but the pulse will test us all soon. The next wave is strong, stronger than anything we've faced. If we fail, it will take more than memory. It will take identity." Ryan nodded. For the first time, he did not feel fear in the usual sense. He felt responsibility, and he knew exactly what he must do. "We face it together," he said. "Not with shields, not with weapons. We face it with our hearts, with connection, with everything that makes us human." Alara looked at him, eyes shimmering with faint light. "Are you ready, Ryan?" He smiled softly. "I have been waiting for this, and I've been waiting for you." Preparing the heart's defense, in the next hours, Ryan and Alara worked tirelessly. They gathered everyone in the station's main dome, a large open area designed for assemblies, with transparent walls showing the endless stars. The plan was simple yet profound. Human emotion would fight the pulse. People would speak from the heart. They would share memories, joy, sadness, hope. They would remember why life mattered, and in doing so, reinforce the bonds that the pulse could not touch. Ryan addressed the crowd first. His voice was steady, calm, and strong, the voice of someone who believed. "Everyone," he began, "we face something unseen, something that tries to erase who we are, one memory at a time. But here is what. It cannot erase our love for each other, our hope for tomorrow, our courage in the face of the unknown. It cannot erase what we choose to feel. It cannot erase the human heart." There was silence. People looked at him uncertainly, unsure how words alone could stop a force they could not see. Alara stepped forward next. "Share your stories. Speak of your joys, your fears, the moments that made you who you are. Do not hide your heart. Let your heart speak for you. Let it fight." And then it began. The wave arrives. A hum filled the station. Lights flickered. The pulse had arrived. Some felt it immediately. Cold emptiness creeping into their minds, shadows brushing against their memories. Crew members stopped in their tracks. Some forgot a task mid-step. Some could not recall the face of someone they had loved for years. Ryan and Alara did not falter. Together they moved among the people. They held hands, they spoke softly, they reminded each person of what mattered most. "Remember," Ryan said to a young engineer, "the first time you built a ship that could survive a solar storm, how did it feel to succeed?" The young engineer blinked. Then he remembered. The pride, the joy, the thrill. He clutched his chest. I remember," he whispered. Alara knelt beside a biologist who had forgotten the smile of her child. "Close your eyes," she said gently. "Feel the warmth of the first laugh you ever heard. Let it live in you. Let it shine." The biologist did as she said, and slowly, a tear formed. She remembered. She felt love again. The pulse tried to push it away, but the human heart fought back. All across the station, similar moments happened. People shared, people remembered, people felt, and every memory strengthened the invisible shield around them. The pulse met resistance unlike anything it had ever encountered. The turning point even. As the station rallied, the pulse was not done. Its waves struck harder, reaching the deepest corners of the mind. Some people could not remember their names. Some could not recall how to smile. Some could not even remember why they were alive. Ilara felt her own memories trembling. She felt the pulse touching the edges of her identity. If it reached her fully, she would forget everything, her mission, her people, her purpose. Rian grabbed her hands. "Do not fight it alone," he said. "We fight together. You are not alone." She looked into his eyes, and for the first time, she truly saw him, not just as a commander, not just as a human, but as someone who had been waiting for the right moment to act. "And you," she whispered, "you are stronger than you know." Ryan smiled faintly. "We are stronger together." He held her hands and led her to the center of the dome. Around them, the people of the station had formed a circle, linking hands, speaking truths, sharing memories. The air was filled with quiet voices, laughter, tears, and the warmth of connection. And then Ryan did something unexpected. He began to speak, not to the crowd, not to the scientists, but to Ilara. "Do you remember?" he said softly. "The first time we spoke here? In this observatory, looking at the stars?" She nodded, eyes wide. "I do." "I told you I felt something missing," he said. "I never knew what it was until you arrived. You were the question my life kept asking, and now I see it clearly. You are the answer I needed." Ilara's eyes shimmered with tears. "Ryan." He squeezed her hands. "We are part of this. Not just the people here, but us. We will remember together. We will hold on to what matters." And in that simple, honest connection, the pulse met its greatest challenge. The human heart triumphs. The waves of the pulse pressed against them like cold, invisible winds. But every person in the dome had one thing the pulse could not erase: human emotion. People remembered what they had forgotten. They remembered friends, family, love, hope. They shared their memories out loud, reinforcing each other's minds. The pulse tried to pull, tried to wash them away, but the strength of shared humanity resisted. Ilara and Ryan moved through the circle, touching, guiding, and encouraging. The pulse's power weakened with every remembered word, every shared memory, every beating human heart. Finally, the pulse receded, slowly, almost imperceptibly. The station lights steadied. The hum of the pulse faded into silence. People wept. They laughed. They hugged, remembering why they mattered to each other. Ilara turned to Ryan. "We did it," she whispered. "No," he said, gently smiling. "You did it. Humanity did it. We only reminded everyone of what they already had inside." And in that moment, Ryan realized something deeper than any mission or achievement. He had found his missing piece. Ilara looked at him, eyes reflecting the stars outside. "And you," she said softly. "You were the answer I needed too." A new beginning after the pulse had passed. Orion 3 returned to its normal rhythm. Ships docked and departed, research continued, and life returned. But everything felt different now. People spoke openly of their memories and emotions. Bonds grew stronger. Connections deepened. Humanity had been tested, and it had triumphed, not through force, but through the power of the heart. Rian and Ilara continued to work together, not just as commander and scientist, but as partners in purpose. Their connection was quiet, unspoken at times, but deeper than anything either had ever experienced. They no longer carried emptiness inside. They carried understanding, hope, and each other. And as they stood once again in the observatory, looking out at the stars, Rian whispered, "Whatever comes next, we will face it together." Ilara nodded, her hand finding his. "Yes, together." The galaxy stretched endlessly before them, full of unknown challenges, new worlds, and mysteries to solve. But humanity had proven one truth. The human heart is stronger than any force, visible or invisible, that seeks to take it away. And in that victory, in that connection, Rian and Ilara found not only the salvation of a station and a people, but the answer to their own lives. The question had been asked, the answer had been found, and the stars shone brighter for it. Elysia 4 was a quiet human colony, far away from the world humanity once called home. The sky was a soft pale blue, and the air smelled like fresh leaves from the biodomes. People lived in peace here, growing food, repairing buildings, teaching children, and exploring the new land. The colony was calm, but calm did not mean complete. Some hearts carried silent storms. Among those hearts was Aiden Hale, a young engineer. Aiden was calm, hardworking, and quiet. He spent his days repairing communication towers, power cores, and machines left from the early colonists. Everyone trusted him. They said he had careful hands and a patient mind, but every night Aiden had the same dream. In the dream, he stood on a broken bridge under a burning sky, and beside him was someone, a woman, her hand holding his. He couldn't see her face clearly, but he felt warmth, a feeling like home, a feeling like love. And then, before he could speak, the dream ended. Every morning he woke up with an ache in his chest, like he had lost something but didn't know what. On the other side of the colony lived Leora Venn, a botanist who worked in the biodome gardens. She cared for flowers and crops, studied soil, and taught children how plants breathed life. She smiled kindly, but her eyes always seemed to carry a soft sadness. Because she had her own dream too. A laugh, a voice, a touch, a promise she could not remember. She would wake up with tears in her eyes, but she did not know why. The colony database held no records of them ever meeting before Elysia 4. No shared classes, no shared assignments, no shared past. Yet whenever they passed each other in the colony walkways, their hearts reacted. Not loudly, not suddenly, but quietly, like two familiar songs softly overlapping. Aiden always lowered his eyes first. He didn't know why he felt nervous. Leora always smiled when she saw him. She didn't know why the sight of him gave her peace. They lived separate lives, close but unknown, like two stars near each other but never touching. One afternoon, Aiden was repairing an old communication satellite near the edge of the colony. The satellite was broken years ago, damaged during the early terraform storms. He removed rusted panels, checked wiring, and restarted the internal computer. Suddenly, a notification blinked on the screen. Encrypted memory archive found access requires 2 DNA identification. Aiden paused. Memory archives were from the time before Earth fell. They were valuable and rare. He leaned closer. The screen showed 2 silhouettes. One looked like him, the other, he could not identify. He felt his heartbeat quicken, but he could not access it alone. It required someone else. He didn't know why, but he felt he already knew who. That evening, Leora was closing the biodome garden. She watered the last row of small blue flowers, flowers she had grown herself. They were gentle flowers that opened only when they felt safe light. She whispered soft words to them, not because they needed it, but because she did. When she stepped outside the dome, she found Aiden waiting quietly near the entrance. He looked nervous, unsure how to speak. She placed her basket down and smiled softly. "Hello, Aiden," she said, though they had never spoken before. She said his name like she had always known it. Aiden swallowed. "Hi, I think I need your help." He explained about the archive, the 2 DNA signatures, the unknown connection. Leora listened carefully, but her heartbeat began to rise. She didn't understand everything, but she knew that something inside her was waking up. "Let's go," she said without hesitation. At the old satellite terminal, Aiden entered his DNA key. The screen glowed. First key accepted. Aiden Halethan. Leora pressed her hand on the scanner. Second key accepted. Leora Venn, the encrypted file unlocked. A hologram projected into the air between them. It showed Earth, not the destroyed Earth they learned about in history books, but Earth as it once was. Blue sky, green trees, tall cities shining in daylight. Then it showed a group of people in uniforms, soldiers or volunteers, and they could not tell which. Then it zoomed closer, Two people stood side by side, Aiden and Leora, holding hands, laughing, alive, together. Leora's hand lifted to her mouth. Aiden's eyes widened and filled with disbelief. Their hearts raced not with shock but with recognition. The hologram continued. A voice echoed, recorded long ago. If the past is too heavy, we will forget. If the pain is too deep, we will erase. But love remembers. If we lose each other in memory, we will find each other in another life on another world. Leora stepped closer to the hologram, tears rising in her eyes. Aiden's hands trembled. They were not strangers at all. They had been lovers before, separated by war, separated by evacuation, separated by memory wipe protocols meant to heal pain of loss. They had promised to find each other again, even without memory. And they had. Not through history records. Not through knowledge, but through something deeper. Something that survived when everything else was erased. Their hearts had remembered. Leora looked at Aiden, slowly, carefully, like one approaches something precious. Aiden, she whispered, voice soft, shaking. So, we didn't fall in love now? No, he said. His voice was gentle, almost broken. We lost it, and we are finding it again. The air around them felt warm, full of something real, something strong. Not sudden love, but returned love, recovered love, ancient love that had waited patiently inside their souls. Leora stepped closer. Aiden did not step away. Their eyes held, not as strangers, but as two hearts finally recognizing each other after a long journey through time and loss. The hologram faded slowly, leaving only quiet wind and soft evening light. Aiden spoke first, voice low and honest. We have to learn what happened. We need to know who we were. Leora nodded. Yes, but one thing. We already know. What? He asked softly. She placed her hand over her heart. That we never truly stopped loving each other. Aiden closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, the ache inside his chest eased. They didn't fall in love. They were returning to a love that had always lived inside them. Waiting, remembering. End of part 1. The next morning on Elysia 4 began quietly, as most mornings did. Suns rose slowly behind the green ridges, and soft orange light touched the colony buildings. But inside Aiden and Leora, the calm sunrise did not match the storm of thoughts running through their minds. Yesterday everything changed. They did not just discover a memory, they discovered themselves. Aiden woke early. He didn't sleep much, not because he was troubled, but because his heart felt full and awake. The dreams he had seen for years suddenly made sense. The warm hand, the laughter, the silent longing. It all pointed to Leora. She wasn't just someone he found beautiful. She was someone he had already chosen once before, and fate, or life, or something else, had brought her back to him. Leora also woke early. She sat in the biodome garden before the workers arrived. She watched the small blue flowers open to artificial sunrise light. The flowers opened slowly, gently, like hearts remembering how to feel. And Leora's own heart felt the same way, blooming, but careful. She placed her hand over her chest. I am not afraid, she whispered to herself, but she was. She feared that this love once lost might slip again. She feared remembering pain. She feared what had happened on Earth. But she also knew. Some truths must be faced, especially the ones that stand between two hearts. When Aiden arrived at the biodome entrance, Leora looked up and smiled. Not a new smile, a familiar one, the kind that had lived in her heart long before memory. They greeted each other softly. No rush, no confusion. They simply walked together, their shoulders close as if the space between them was already home. They went back to the satellite memory archive. Aiden activated the terminal, and Leora stood beside him, ready. More files were locked inside. They opened the next one. A hologram appeared, this time showing a city on fire. Not destruction, but evacuation alarms. People running, ships launching, the sky burning red. A voice spoke. The Earth cannot survive the war. We must leave. We must protect the memory of who we are. Then the hologram showed the two of them, younger, wearing evacuation uniforms. They carried supplies, they helped children board ships. They held each other's hands in quiet moments when they thought no one noticed. Aiden whispered, "We were rescuers." Leora nodded, eyes soft. "We were trying to save people, not fight." The hologram continued. To prevent trauma, all volunteers will undergo memory removal before new colony placement. Love, grief, loss, all of it may break the mind in a new world. Only the heart may remember what the mind forgets. Then it showed the moment. Aiden and Leora standing in a white room, holding each other tightly. Tears falling, knowing they would soon forget. The recording of Leora from the past spoke, voice trembling but strong. "Even if my mind forgets your name, my heart will not forget your soul." The recording of Aiden replied, "We will find each other again somewhere, somehow." The hologram faded. Aiden and Leora stayed silent for a long time. They did not cry loudly or break down. Their pain was soft, the kind that is heavy but gentle, the kind that does not destroy but transforms. Aiden finally spoke. "We were strong back then." Leora smiled faintly. "We still are." But now they had another problem to face. Not everyone in the colony believed in peace. The remnant movement and a group of colonists who resented the past believed humanity should rule again. They wanted to rebuild old power. They believed the galaxy feared humans, and that fear was strength. Their leader, Commander Reelan, was bold, charismatic, and angry. He had lost his family in the war and believed peace was weakness. When the EK remnants learned Aiden had accessed an Earth memory archive, they became interested. Too interested. That afternoon, Aiden and Leora were called to attend a colony council meeting. The remnant leader was there. Commander Reelan stood tall, eyes sharp. His voice was strong, but his words carried a quiet threat. "We heard you accessed a restricted archive," he said. Aiden answered calmly. "It was activated accidentally during satellite repairs. We did not hide anything." Reelan narrowed his eyes. "We want the file," he said. Leora stepped forward. "Why?" Reelan's face did not move. "Because the past gives us power, and power is what humanity needs." Leora shook her head. "No, the past teaches us compassion. We left Earth to protect others, not to conquer them." Reelan smiled, but it was not warm. "Some of us believe survival requires strength. The galaxy is dangerous. If humans do not stand above others, we will fall." Aiden spoke then, clear and firm. "Strength is not domination. Strength is protecting life." The council watched in silence. Reelan's expression darkened, but he did not argue further. He simply said, "This colony will need to choose what future it wants." It was not a threat, but it felt like one. That night, Aiden sat outside under the artificial stars, deep in thought. He did not fear Reelan. He feared what anger could do to hearts that had already forgotten love. Leora joined him quietly, sitting beside him. She didn't ask what he was thinking. She already knew. "Aiden," she said softly, "do you think the colony will divide?" Aiden looked out across the quiet city lights. People who forget love always look for something else to fill the empty space. Sometimes that becomes fear. Sometimes power. Leora nodded. "And we just remembered love." She rested her head on his shoulder, slowly, gently, with trust that was older than memory. Their closeness did not feel new or strange. It felt like something that had always existed. Aiden placed his hand over hers. Not fast, not dramatic, not bold, just natural. "We can help them remember too," he said quietly. Leora smiled. Yes, not by force, not by arguments, but by showing them what we lost and what we found again. The night was quiet and warm. Over the next days, Aiden and Leora began to decode the remaining memory files. They learned more about Earth, its downfall, its hope, the final mission to save life rather than destroy. They recorded everything, carefully, respectfully. They shared the story with trusted teachers, caretakers, and elders, people who valued humanity's gentle strength. Some listened and understood, some cried, some felt their hearts soften. But the remnant movement grew louder. They spread fear among young colonists, speaking of threats beyond the stars, enemies waiting to strike, dangers that required power, weapons, and control. They said love was weakness. They said peace was foolish. They said memory was a trap. But hearts are strange things. They remember even when the mind forgets. And slowly, quietly, many colonists began to feel something again. Connection, empathy, hope, not because Aiden and Leora forced them, but because truth speaks on its own. But peace never stands alone for long. One night, alarms echoed across the colony. Life support system, failure. Oxygen levels falling. Someone had sabotaged the system. People panicked. Children cried. Lights flickered. Aiden knew immediately who was responsible. The remnants wanted to show that peace was fragile, and fear justified their power. Aiden reacted fast. I know the infrastructure. I can fix it if I get to the core systems. Leora grabbed tools. I'm coming with you. They didn't run because of fear. They ran because lives depended on them. Together through smoke-filled hallways, failing air ducts, and flickering lights, they reached the control facility. Aiden repaired power circuits while Leora recalibrated oxygen distribution. Their hands moved in perfect harmony, like they had worked together all their lives. Because once, they had. Within minutes, oxygen flow stabilized. The colony breathed again. Children stopped crying. People realized who had saved them. Not the remnants, Aiden and Leora. Not through strength. Through love, unity, and memory. But the remnants were not finished. Their leader watched them from the shadows, eyes filled with something painful, something that looked like both anger and longing. He whispered, "They remember love, so now I must make them forget."